Good afternoon, everyone. You're watching a live broadcast with me, Priti Raichura. And like every week on a Sunday, I have my lovely guest here with me today, and his name's Robby Khela. Robby, thank you so much for joining me here on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. It really is really nice out there today, isn't it?
It is really nice. I went for a run earlier on, so it was really nice. And thank you for having me on your show.
No, thank you, thank you. And I know that it's not easy because for those people that are tuning in and have seen the creatives that have been going out, today is all about homosexuality, gay Asians, and marriage, and how taboo that actually is. And we have like the lovely Robby joining us now. Robby, tell me a little bit more about yourself.
So I'm born in Slough, just outside of West London in Berkshire. Come from a typical Punjabi family. There was me, my mum, my dad, and my brother. My dad passed away in 2001, so it's just us three left now. And yeah, I started performing at a very early age. I was signed to a record label in 2002. And since then, I've been kind of involved in performing arts, singing, musical theatre. Slowly made my transition into some Bollywood films in 2017.
Oh,
and yeah,
which ones have you done? Woo-hoo, Bollywood. Look, we have a Bollywood star here as well. We've had a few Bollywood stars actually on here.
Nice. Yeah. And then, yeah, just since then, just been, just living my life and trying to make my mark in the arts as much as I can.
Awesome, awesome. And in terms of, from a very young age, you have, I guess, you said that your family, you're born and bred in Slough, is that right?
That's right, yeah.
And your family, are practicing Sikhs. You're from a typical Punjabi family. Unfortunately, you lost your father a few years ago. But in terms of your childhood, now you don't mind talking about your sexuality because that's what this kind of show is about. Today is about discussing homosexuality and being an Asian male, and some of the challenges you've faced. Now, at what stage in your life did you realize that actually you're gay?
I think I've always known to some degree, but I think it became really clear when I signed the record deal with the label. And, it was hammered into us from day one. It was a mixed vocal group. So it was hammered into us that the girls need to be sexy and attract the, male attention. And the guys, you need to be sexy and also attract the female fan base. And together, build upon a collective fan base. And to me, that's when it kind of struck me like, oh, okay, I don't think I'm attracted to females. So this is, I guess that's where the acting really started, because you're trying to pursue this dream, you're trying to make this record label happy and the management happy, but then you also know deep down that actually I'm kind of not being truthful to who I am as an artist, and I'm having to live, from a very early age, gay Asians have to start living a double life, and sometimes they do it when they don't even realize they're doing it. And at that time, back all those years ago, I kind of knew that I was doing it, but the dream was too big to not pursue it.
Yeah, of course. But you said that you knew, so in your adulthood is when you kind of were definite that, no, I am definitely gay. And it took this record label to convince you that you're gay. But what about when you were younger? What about when you were like, 5, 6 years old? Did you know, or did you just think, oh, this is all, obviously you might not remember going back, that far. I've heard from people that as far back as they can remember being gay.
As far as back as that, to be honest with you, I had no inclination whatsoever.
Really?
Yeah,
really?
I was very indifferent, very kind of like, oh, like nothing sexual even crossed my mind back then, or like knowing that, oh, I like guys or I like girls. To me, they were just people,
Okay.
It's only when I got to the sexual maturity age, that's when the feelings started kicking in. That's when I actually started realizing. And when I was signed to a record label, that was when I was 19, 20 years old. And for me, that's when the feelings really started kicking in. But prior to that, I don't really recall. ever kind of feeling I'm attracted to one or the other.
Yeah. But what about, when you started to have those feelings, did you start to feel some form of anxiety from inside, thinking, hang on, this is not normal, whatever normal is,
Yeah.
I shouldn't be feeling attracted to males, I should be feeling attracted to females, and this is not going to be accepted. Did that go through your head at all?
Absolutely. And what made it worse was the fact that the record label at the time was hammering it in that, you need to be like this group, you need to be like that group. I think they compared us to S Club 7 and Steps at the time. And even though some of the members in Steps have now come out as gay, at that time they were all hetero and, completely straight in the public's eye. So we were compared to those bands, and act like them and attract that kind of fan base. So you immediately start to suppress the feelings that you do have, and when you suppress something, it just becomes more heightened. To be honest with you, and then the guilt and the shame becomes even more heightened as well. But like I said, the kind of the law of the industry, and you're going to get a record deal, you're going to get to tour the world, you're going to get to meet and work with these producers who've written stuff for like Britney Spears and all this sort of stuff. You're kind of just focused on that, and you suppress everything else. And that's
it must be really difficult living that double life. I mean, sure, even heterosexuals live a double life sometimes if they're born and bred in the UK, and sometimes even a male or a female growing up in the UK. Back in the day, things have changed now. You're not even allowed to have a boyfriend if you're a female. You're not allowed to, and if you are dating someone, it needs to be someone from your own community. It can't be a Gora or a Gala or, for anybody from a different background. Things are definitely changing now. But for you, it's still very raw, isn't it?
It is still very raw, mainly because even representation now in the arts isn't the where we want it to be. Especially in Bollywood or in shows that you see on TV now, LGBTQ characters are usually historically ridiculed or there as the butt of a joke of, if you as a character. But things are slowly changing, but it's not moving as fast as we would like. And I think representation is important, because if the older generation saw that on screen and, were able to kind of learn from that, then they might be a bit more accepting. But until that equality and representation doesn't happen, I don't think a lot of people are going to be educated enough.
Yeah. Now, you were born a Sikh, and you still, you're not practicing Sikh as such, but you still follow the core principle of Sikhi. Tell me how that fits in to your to your sexuality.
Well, as far as I know, Sikhi doesn't actually specify being gay, what being gay is. I think in Sikhi, the most important thing is family, having a family, providing for the family, and being there for your loved ones, and following a righteous path. It doesn't specify what that family constitutes. Is it a man? Is it a woman? Is it two men? Is it two women? It doesn't specify. All it says is, be part of a family unit, and, respect them and provide for them. So in that sense, even though I'm not a practicing Sikh, I am quite spiritual in that sense. And for me, there are some really good elements in Sikhi which teach us about equality, animal rights, men and women are equal, standing up for injustice. But all this stuff around, Sikhs don't accept LGBTQ people, or Sikhs don't accept marriages between different castes or different religions. To me, that is more cultural than religion, because as far as I'm concerned, Sikhi has not said anything about these aspects at all. That's more men in high positions imposing what they believe is true, and creating this whole kind of religious persona around their belief. And I don't think Sikhi actually even says that. So
you can be spiritual and then be gay.
Of course, I mean, we are all human. If you do believe in the soul, I have a soul just as much as you do. Doesn't mean my soul is any different to yours, you know. So of course gay people can be spiritual, and you know, I think the lines between religion and sexuality when it comes to LGBTQ people is blurring, because now you have certain religious sects coming up and saying, you know, we actually accept homosexuality. And if you look at the Hindu scriptures from the past, I mean, I'm no expert, but this is what I've learned from my friends, that even some gods and goddesses in Hindu scriptures have interchanged. You know, they don't identify as men or women, or you know, they've always kind of gone in between. And you know, I think it really is a cultural construct that we've imposed, and I think those constructs are now being challenged, and it's about time.
I totally agree with you, and I think you're absolutely right there in what you've just said and what you've heard, you know, from your friends as well in terms of Hindu gods and goddesses. What about if you were to bring a male partner home, somebody who you were really serious about? Would you consider getting married in the Gurdwara if you were allowed to do so?
If I was allowed, absolutely. You know, but I know for a fact it's not going to be allowed. I mean, I don't know if you've heard, but there are Gurdwaras now in West London area and in Slough who are kind of against marriages between two different religions or two different kind of castes. So my cousin is getting married this year in June, and he's getting married to a Bengali girl, but they've had to hold the wedding somewhere in East London and find a Gurdwara there, because the Gurdwaras in West London, they don't want to know. So if they're having difficulties, imagine two guys or two women getting married in the Gurdwara. I think we're a long way off from that happening, to be honest with you. In an ideal world, I would love for that to happen, but I think we're a long way off for that.
Long way off. So what advice would you give, you know, to people? And I'm going to go to some of the messages that are coming up, but for those people maybe that are spiritual, are religious, and on this show, Robbie, you know, I mentioned this to you earlier, we've had a lesbian couple on this show before as well, who have openly spoke about some of their challenges, but also how they've embraced each other's religious beliefs. So we had Nav on here who, you know, being brought up as a Sikh, and Khyati being brought up as a Hindu, and a very strong practicing Hindu, in fact, and she continues to be a practicing Hindu. They both had a Hindu wedding, a beautiful Hindu wedding, in fact. And what actually happened is, when they were dating and when the Hindu community, you know, whatever that is, the representation of the Hindu community and the Sikh community, I remember them talking how the community heads wrote to each other to say, this needs to stop. This practice needs to stop. I mean, if their families didn't mind, which they didn't, because their families embraced the fact that both their daughters are, you know, are that of the LGBT community, and they want to get married, really serious about each other. But it was the religious leaders from the Sikh community and the Hindu community that ended up writing quite rude letters to each other. And they were talking about it on the show, saying, this needs to stop. And, you know, it's one of your girls that is a bad influence on one of our girls. And, you know, and they're kind of blaming each other. And these two actually just stayed out of it, thinking, you know what, you guys carry on, you know. And Khyati, you know, like I said, being a practicing Hindu, she was just like quite shocked you know, at what was kind of going on, and, you know, some of the exchange, the letters that were being exchanged to one another. I mean, for those that may be tuned in right now that come from, you know, or represent any of the religions, and I'm not just saying like the Hindu religion, the Sikh religion, any religion for that matter, you know, talking about homosexuality is actually a very taboo subject. Yes, things are changing, but what advice would you have? Because you clearly just said, you know, that if you would be allowed, and like, you know, you just said, you have a soul, just like I do, like the listeners do. You have feelings, and you have been brought up as a Sikh, and you follow the principles of Sikhi, and you know what, you know, and there's such beautiful teachings as well in Sikhi. So what would you advise to those religious leaders that are actually tuned in and watching?
I would advise those religious leaders not to forget that we are human, that, we, just like you, just like everybody else, have dreams and aspirations. We want to be loved. We want to get married to the people we love. And I don't understand why they would have such a problem with that. Like, I really don't understand why you have a problem with two people coming together who want to have a union for the rest of their lives. It doesn't affect you in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't affect society in any way, shape, or form. The love between those two people is between them. And at the end of the day, they're making their own home. They're paying their bills, they're paying their mortgage. They're not in your lives or interfering in your lives and your decision making. Yeah. So just accept them for who they are. And I honestly do feel that, I think this whole kind of comes from the fact that a lot of older generations, including religious leaders, still think that being gay is like a lifestyle choice. That suddenly I've woken up and said, oh, I'm going to be a vegetarian, and gay today. Yeah. But it's not the case. No one in their right mind chooses the most difficult path in life. Mm-hmm. And at the moment, unfortunately, being LGBTQ is a very difficult path, especially if you're a person of color, because you're ridiculed at every single turn. Your lifestyle choices are questioned. You're not allowed to marry. You're not allowed to love. You're not allowed to hold hands in public. You're not allowed to just be yourself. Yeah. No one chooses that path. No one chooses to be bullied in the playground or to be kicked in the head or to be, punched. No one chooses that path. So I think the older generation need to get that out of their head, that it's a choice. It's not a choice. It's who we are. It's how we're born. Yeah. I can't change my sexuality, just like I can't change the fact that, I'm British Asian, or the fact that my hair is black and my eyes are brown. I can't change those things. Yeah. Yeah. And I can't change my DNA and my sexuality either. And I think if that understanding seeps into these religious leaders' minds, maybe there's a chance that we could have equal marriages across the board. But until that happens, like I said, I don't see that happening anytime soon. Yeah. And my advice to those people who are religious but want to obviously get married, I think be spiritual about it. You can easily have all the riti rivaj and the customs that go with a Sikh wedding or a Hindu wedding. Yeah. And then get married, have a simple civil marriage. At the end of the day, the union is between you and your partner. Exactly. And God is, as far as I'm concerned, God is everywhere. He can be, he's in a gurdwara, he's in a mandir, he's in a masjid, he's everywhere. He's made this whole world. So at the end of the day, you and your partner have that real genuine love for each other. And it's in the eyes of God. God sees it and, he blesses it. That's the way I see it. Honestly, I do feel for those people who want to get married in a gurdwara or a mandir or whatever, but it is still a long way away as far as I can see. Who knows? Maybe in 2 years' time, I might be proven wrong, and there'll be loads of gay weddings happening in gurdwaras and mandirs. That would be just amazing.
Absolutely, I really hope you're right. I mean, I know that I know a number of people that have got married, that have had religious ceremonies. So most of the time they're Hindu ceremonies that have been conducted by a Hindu priest. And sometimes she does join us. Like I said, we're going to go to the messages soon. As it is, even being a Hindu female priest, that in itself is quite a taboo. But I'm aware of 2 Hindu female priests that actually conduct LGBT weddings. And it's a proper Hindu wedding with the fere, and they take their vows just as they would if it was a female and a male taking their religious vows, exactly in the same way. And in fact, Khyati and Nav, they had a beautiful Hindu wedding. They both put on a Mangal Sutra on each other, but there was a few adaptations to the Hindu ceremony, but what a beautiful ceremony. And those two continue to live a beautiful, life together. And they're so happy because their families have accepted it, their, friends have accepted it, but not everybody is as fortunate as them. Now, Robby, I'm just going to quickly go to the messages. Thank you so much to everybody that's joining let's have a quick look and then we'll carry on. Thanks, Dharmesh, for joining us. And Dharmesh is just saying, be proud of who you are. Well, I can certainly say that Robby is definitely proud. I mean, you can see Robby sitting there, talking about how proud he is. But, we mustn't turn away from the challenges you've actually faced, which we will talk about in a little while as well, and especially in your profession that you're in. We have Jolpesh joining us from India as well. Thank you for joining us, and greetings to you. Pasman Pai, who's actually a priest, a Hindu priest, he's actually saying not much has been written about LGBT in Sikhism. However, there are a number of instances of such in the Mahabharata and other Purans. So, like you said, there is reference to homosexuality, and maybe it's not just homosexuality. And Pasman Pai, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. I do believe that there is reference to, and this is I don't know what the Sanskrit word is for this, but there is reference in the Ramayana when Lord Ram leaves Ayodhya to go to Vanvas for 14 years. There was a group of people that was so disheartened that he was leaving, and they were following him, and they were known as the other people. The other people. So they were not males, they were not females, they were the other people. And again, we'll just wait to see what Pasman Pai says about this. But those other people, because they followed Lord Ram all the way to the forest, and then until he asked them, look, you've done your tapasya, you've done you too have made such a big sacrifice following me all the way to the forest. It's now time for you to go back. And at that point, he blesses them and says that during the time of Kali Yuga, which is what we say we are in now, you will be ruling. So that's still to be seen. But we do see a lot of it, don't we? Whatever that means in terms of, does that mean that a lot of gay people, those people from the LGBT community will start to come out with a lot more confidence? Who knows? But it could well be, and we are in that time of Kali Yuga. But like Pasman Pai said, there is reference in the Mahabharata and the Purans. And in fact, he's saying Shiv Parvati is an example of this, because Shiv Parvati, and he's saying of that, he's saying they're unisex. Also, he's saying Sikhism, like Swaminarayan, has split up from its traditional rules. This is because this, therefore, has sadly been misrepresented in current times. Okay. We've got Jazbinda also joining us. Seikon, so powerful to be sharing this story at such and being so truthful, and that's to you, Robby. So thank you for that. We've got Nisha also joining us, who's saying, brave and admirable, Robby. Well done despite everything. Asha also joining us and saying, I think some people may feel embarrassed in the community in terms of what the community may think. When families accept that things won't change, like what you said, you can't change the way you are. You are born like this. And she's just saying that not listening to others and accepting your child's sexuality is really important. And she too is saying, Robby is a lovely person. Do you know Asha? You may well know Asha, because she's in arts as well. So thank you for that as well. Jasbinda also saying, this is the only way things will change when we share to discuss topics like this. But we always have kind of taboo topics on here, in terms of because I really want to try and help bring about change. But in my profession, I'm also a wedding planner, and I have people from the LGBT community saying to me, can you plan our wedding, because we don't know how to plan our weddings. Our family have disowned us, but we still want a spiritual wedding. And my answer is yes, of course I can, because like you, I believe in the soul. I believe in them to be individuals that should be treated equally. And I believe that they have the right to get married to who they choose to get married to. So yes, absolutely. And if anything, I will push on it to so whenever you decide to get married, Robby, you know who to call.
I was just thinking that I've got someone to call now. Absolutely.
I will bend all the rules for you.
like a lot of people, I'm also clueless. Like, where do you actually begin to even start planning a spiritual wedding, if that's what you want? So yeah, I'm gonna make a note of that.
Make a note of that, because I just think, as it is, planning a wedding is so difficult for individuals that, you've never been married before. You wouldn't even know, like you said, where to start. So. And then having the extra challenges, because you come from an LGBT community, and then having to deal with all the other challenges that come with it, whether it's with the venue, whether it's with, if you wanted a spiritual wedding, whether in terms of some of the customs that we follow during a wedding ceremony, that of like how Nav and Khyati exchange Mangal Sutras, all those kind of things. One may say, well, why did they have to put a Mangalsutra on each other? Well, why not?
Yeah.
Exactly. So, they're each other's wives, and they lovingly call one another, they're each other's wives, and I love it. I absolutely love it. But it's not easy for everyone. It really is not easy for everyone. So we also have, so Asha does know you. She's saying, yes, I know Robbie through Divesh.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, I thought so.
Divish is someone who I work with really closely. He's an amazing producer and composer. So obviously, as well as acting, I also write songs, and we've written quite a few songs together for musicals.
Oh, really? One of the you have told me that. I'm going to make you sing something. You know that, don't you?
Okay. One of the musicals we did actually was called Stardust, and that happened in 2019 at the Belgrade Theatre. And that was the first British Asian musical to show an Indian LGBTQ wedding on stage. So I played one of the characters. I got an actor called Isaac Sidhu, who's also an amazing actor. He played one of the characters, and it was the first show to showcase a full-on Indian gay wedding on stage, and it's not been before. And like you said, there were some members of the community who really embraced it and were like, there were standing ovations all over the place. But then there were also some who walked out at the interval. Yeah, and some even before the interval. As soon as they realized there's an LGBTQ story between these two guys, they walked out. They demanded, we want a refund. We don't want to see this abomination in our theaters. And I'm glad the Belgrade Theatre stuck to their guns and said, sorry, that's not covered in our policy. If you don't like the show, there's the door.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Even in this day and age, for them to walk out of a show like that, it goes to show we need to be making more of this stuff. We need to be talking about it more. We can't shy away, like someone said in the comments, we can't shy away from having these conversations and for showing them on stage or on screen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally agree with you. Now, that must also being, having these challenges and what you've just spoken about, must impact on your mental health, because it certainly does, and there's people out there, I've got friends who are close friends, who are gay, and I know some of the challenges that they've been through. I know, kind of, there's sometimes they've been suicidal, just because of, that whole, the taboo side of things, but also being accepted. And like you said, even though, your family have started accepting it, you said that, you live with your brother's very supportive. I will go on to your mom in a little while, but, the wider community, and, something like this is quite, upsetting, that you're going into, a theatre, you're performing, you're paying, you're playing, you're just, going to showcase what you guys have been rehearsing to the wider community, and then you've got certain individuals that decide to walk out purely because they don't accept the fact, that LGBT communities even exist, or that they have they feel every right that they can be undermined.
Mm-hmm. Well, you got to look at it this way. There's good and bad in everything. You have a good situation, there's going to be a bad situation with it. It's yin and yang. It goes hand in hand. So yes, there were one or two people who walked out of the show, but then for me, the whole point of doing the show was when this 12-year-old boy stayed behind afterwards, after all the bows were done, after the lights all went up. He stayed behind with his family to come and see us and meet the actors. And his mum had tears in her eyes, and she basically said, "My son came out to me 2 years ago, and the entire family doesn't speak to us anymore. And
Wow.
for you to put on a show like this
Mm.
in Coventry of all places
Wow.
makes me realize that he is perfectly fine as he is. He's a great kid, and he has every single right to have all the love and happiness in the world that other people do. And there's nothing wrong with him. You know,
Yeah.
there's absolutely nothing wrong with him. He is perfect the way he is. And
Mm.
if our show can make a 12-year-old feel that way and give them that confidence, and
Yeah.
also, you know, bring him closer with his family that's there also watching the show, then the other
Yeah.
person who's booked out and asking for a refund on the ticket, they don't mean anything to me. You know,
Yeah.
that doesn't bother me, because that 12-year-old boy is the people that we're making the show for. You know, so that they can feel empowered and they can
Yeah.
say, "Do you know what? I'm fine. There's nothing wrong with me. I don't know why the world is making me feel like there's something wrong with me," and
Mm.
there really isn't. And that's what we're
Yeah.
trying to say to these people.
Yeah. And the thing is, Robbie, there's young professionals, who, and again, I'm aware of it because, I do a lot of work in the community. There's young professionals, so they've, been brought up in this country, born and bred in this country, know about the LGBT community and know very well that, oh yeah, yeah, because I think it's really cool to have a gay friend and saying, yeah, 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 it's fine, oh yeah, I've got lots of gay friends. But when their young son or daughter ends up coming out, like you said, about this 12-year-old coming out and saying, by the way, I'm gay, at that point is their testing time. Would they actually able to accept it that
Mm.
in their own household, their own son or daughter has turned out gay? Probably not. And I know situations like that as well, because
Yeah,
there's people that I know who, have again, like I said, saying, yeah, 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 it's fine to be gay, and and I totally accept it, and I'm all for equal opportunities and all that kind of stuff. But when it hits home, it becomes totally different. That as well, must be very, very traumatizing for a young child, like
of course.
like a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
Um,
But I also
um,
think, again, it goes down to education. And I didn't realize this until I spoke to a few of my friends and what their parents had said. I think, even though on the outside, some parents might be really accepting and saying, yeah, we're cool with LGBTQ people, until their own son or daughter comes out. I think the fear in the back of their mind is, oh, my son's gay, my daughter's a lesbian. How are they going to have a normal family? How
yeah.
are they going to be lonely
Mm.
for the rest of their lives? Because obviously they can't have, for their mind, they think they can't have a family, they can't have children. Who's going to look after them? Who's going to carry on their legacy?
Yeah.
And I think, again, it boils down to education now, because gay people, like we've seen, and you've conducted these weddings yourself, they can happily get married and have a family. There are so many options out there of having children.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to go down the biological route anymore.
Yeah.
There are so many other options out there, and
Yeah.
it's possible to have a gay family.
Yeah.
And I think once that education is also out there for the older generation, they might have less anxiety about their son or daughter or grandchildren coming out.
Yeah.
Because at the end of, ultimately, I think all parents deep down, what do they want? They want their kids to be happy,
Mm.
and they also want their legacy to be carried forward. That's
Yeah.
basically what most Asian parents want. And I
Sure.
think you can reassure them and educate them that this is also possible, even though your son or daughter might be gay.
Mm.
I think that anxiety and that kind of worry will be reduced significantly. But
Yeah.
again, it's having that open conversation with them,
Mm.
making them sit down and making them listen. Some of
Yeah.
them we don't want to listen because they're so stuck in the traditional ways. But
Yeah.
some, they might be open to listen, and they might actually learn something, and you'll be benefiting each other. But I
Yeah.
think someone said, like, in the comments again, conversation needs to carry on and needs to continue,
Yeah.
and we need to find ways of communicating with
Mm.
each other and the different generations.
Sure. No. Absolutely no. I've just going to go back to the messages. Asha is saying it was a brilliant show, and she's saying, "I'll help you." Does that mean she's going to help you to have a maybe plan your wedding. We also have the priest that I mentioned, and he said, if he wants, I think he's talking about you, I can help plan his wedding. Look, you've got a whole fan club here. You've got people wanting to plan your wedding. You just got to go and find someone. Well, we're going to go on to that in a minute as well. Can help plan, excuse me, I'm the wedding planner. He's the priest. You're not going to plan no wedding. My God. I say he's going to help plan the wedding ceremony despite not actively being engaged in the ceremony itself. Now, I am also aware that sometimes, although some of the priests, and again, Pastor Pike may able to, I'm sure he'll echo what I'm saying is, I am aware when couples have come to me from the LGBT community, and if they want a Hindu wedding, there's maybe less than a handful of priests that will conduct the wedding, not because they don't support the LGBT communities, but because what they say is that their own community, that of the priesthood community, will not accept them. To do that. So I think it's very difficult sometimes unless they, they feel confident enough to bend the rules, like how I said, some of the female priests I know that do conduct these weddings. And they're quite happy to do so. So obviously you've got a male priest now who's saying that he doesn't mind doing that, and he would love to read Robbie's horoscopes for you. So there you go.
Wow.
To kind of accommodate the information I need, just to put my beliefs into perspective as to which of the stars made him this way. Well, there you go. So if you want your horoscopes, if you want an astrologer, we have a volunteer astrologer here who doesn't mind reading your horoscopes, your stars, and then he will he's saying he will able to identify what's made you this way. Well, I don't think anybody can answer that. I think it's God's plans. Why you're not gay. That is, you're born that way. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't.
I do believe in the sense that, like you said, it's God's plan. We all have a karmic journey that we need to follow.
Yeah.
And, if you are really spiritual, you'll understand someone's karmic journey and not judge it.
Yes.
And that's what needs to be hammered in, or from a spiritual point of view. This is my individual journey, and, whatever lessons I'm going to learn in this life, I'm going to learn.
Yeah.
Try not to make things more difficult. If you can't help, then don't make things more difficult either.
Exactly. Absolutely. And we also have Jaswinder, who's also joining us, and she's talking about her being a celebrant at your wedding. So we're already getting you married, Robbie, even though we don't know, we've not discovered yet if you have a partner. So that's the big key. Do you have a partner, or do we need to find you someone?
Not at the moment. So I think first find me someone, and then you're all invited. There you go.
We're all invited, and we'll all play our very distinctive roles. So we can have Pastor Pai who will conduct the ceremony. We've got Jaswinder who will do a nice spiritual kind of ceremony, and she's brilliant as well. She's been on the show before. In fact, so has Pastor Pai. We've had him on the show before. And we've got Asha Ben, who I'm sure will help me out with the whole planning side of things, because she's very hands-on as well. So look, you've got a whole lot of people here that that want to see you get married. So tell me more about relationships. What does it mean to you to find that solid relationship?
I think, everyone has challenges. It's in this modern age of connecting with people, whether you're gay or straight. I think there are a lot of females out there and men out there, both gay and straight, who, focus on their career more than their actual love life, and then get to a point where they're successful and they've accomplished their dream, but now they're kind of failing to connect with another individual. And I think with me, it's also been a similar case. Like the kind of guys I've gone out and dated, either they're also focused on their career, and so am I, and so things fizzle out. Or what happens is, and this happens a lot in the South Asian community, they're actually still in the closet. They they kind of see this themselves as a phase that, you know, I'll date guys and get them out of my system, but eventually I am going to settle down with a girl and have a family in the traditional sense. That's what my you know, parents want, and that's what my culture wants.
So have
and
you
then
dated anybody like that?
and I have, yes. And as soon as I found out, it was cutting ties completely, because, you know, I refused to be someone's, I guess the term is side piece.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't want to enable you to live a double life. If that's what you want to do, ultimately, that's your choice. But
Yeah.
I don't want to be part of that choice. You know, I can't live that life. I can't have a wife at home and then, you know, also have a boyfriend on outside. Like, that's not the way. I just couldn't live with that. But unfortunately, there are some people out there who feel that's the only option. And that's why they get in, you know, things like marriage of conveniences or MOCs. You know, they're always advertised on certain Asian boards, like, you know, looking for MOC. And if you go to gay Asian clubs, there are people walking around the smoking area, striking up conversations. Oh, are you looking to get married to a girl? Because my mate, you know, she's a lesbian, and, you know, she's getting pressurized to get married, and she wants to find a gay guy. And it's really heartbreaking that these situations are still happening in 2021, and that we still feel we need to be forced into MOCs just to kind of be accepted. But when you're stuck on both sides of the fence, it becomes so exhausting. And that's why, like what you said earlier on, it leads to mental breakdowns. And to the extreme case, it leads to people committing suicide because they can't keep the charade going. They can't keep this double life going. And you can just imagine the amount of pressure that they must feel for them to take that ultimate step. You know, and again, it all boils down to people needing to just sit down and listen and understand, and not think that this is like a trivial situation, because it really isn't. You know, people are actually losing their lives out here.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So, okay, so you've said that, you know, it is difficult. We've identified it's difficult, but when it comes down to those people, you know, that have to go to, you know, LGBT clubs to find, you know, an ideal, you know, partner, you know, who can sign on the dotted line to say, yeah, this is a marriage of convenience or whatever. They are, we know, you know, we've already discussed that, you know, they're kind of fooling themselves and kind of fooling their families. But how difficult is it to actually talk to your family about the fact that, you know, we know obviously, especially in the Asian community, I'm sure it is in other communities as well, but how difficult is it to talk to your parents? I know that you've said that your brother's very supportive and your mom's aware of it, but she's kind of just swept it under the carpet. Tell me a little bit more about that and how you have spoken to her about it, is that right?
I have spoken to her, and to be honest with you, I've been one of the lucky ones, in the sense that when I have spoken to her, she has tried to understand. She's not fully there yet, but at the same time, she hasn't like kicked me out of the house or, you know, disowned me. And unfortunately, that's the fear that most young LGBTQ people have in the back of their minds. If I tell my parents, will they accept me, or will they go the other way and just totally disown me, kick me out of the house, tell me that, you know, I'm dead to them? And that unfortunately happens a lot more than the acceptance part, you know, especially in like really strict religious cultural backgrounds. People are, you know, young people are disowned. And like I said earlier, they're forced to then go out there in the world, fend for themselves. And also ultimately the pressure to find people who accept you for who you are, and to find your own secondary family. And it's a very difficult situation to be in. But in my case, you know, I like I said, I've been lucky. I've had a very supportive brother. I don't have much contact with my extended family, so they don't really know anything about us in general. And my mum, you know, each and every day I do feel she's coming round. And I deep down, I think if I was to bring someone home and she could see that I'm happy, and she could see that, you know, we treat each other as well, I think she'd be quite accepting. But it has taken several years to get to that point, several years of communication.
And I guess you've just got to keep trying. I mean, I, again, know of people, like you said, I think it's not, you know, I mean, there's two people I can think at the top of my head that I know that are gay. They're living this double life. they wish, they've spoken to me about it, saying, I wish I was dead. Sometimes they just say, I wish I was dead, because it's really hurtful. I didn't choose to be this way. God made me this way. You don't know how difficult it is, being Asian and being gay. And when I've said, well, why don't you talk to your families about it? And they're like, no, not because they're scared that they'll be thrown out, but because they're scared to hurt their parents, because of the bezzati that the family will experience. And I was like, well, is it bezzati? You've got siblings that are likely to support you and probably able to understand your situation, but they will just not take the risk of telling their parents. In fact, one of my friends actually said, there's no child would ever, kind of wish that their parents were dead. And I don't mean this, and he actually said to me, I don't mean this to actually happen, but the only time I'll find peace is when my parents both pass on. I feel I'm able to get on with my life, because they will not have to see me go through the next process in my life, which is really quite sad.
That is very sad. That's actually heartbreaking, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And like I've said, I've fortunately not been in that situation.
Yeah.
I do have a mother who's willing to sit down and listen. And she might be stuck in her ways sometimes, but at least she's taken that first step where she is sitting down, communicating and listening. And my heart really goes out to those parents who don't want to do that with their own children, and also to the kids who basically feel that they don't want to hurt their parents, but then ultimately end up hurting themselves in the long run because they're not being true to themselves.
Yeah. And if and sometimes we just don't know when our own mental health takes the best of us, and when people then talk about, oh, I wish I was dead, or I would, or are suicidal, or have those suicidal thoughts, when push comes to shove, I'm sure no parent would ever wish that their child would suffer in that way. And then, if you do speak to the parents, you would just say, well, this happened because they didn't have the courage to speak to you. And at that point, I'm sure every parent would probably say, I really just wish they did, because I would have accepted it.
I also believe this, though, that for certain situations to move forward, certain people need to be rebellious. It's as simple as that. Because if you look at the 70s and 80s, women were often told, oh, if your husband's really bad for you, or if he's treating you badly, stay with him. Don't divorce. If you divorce, it's such a taboo. What is society going to say? Loki goge and all this sort of stuff. It took women to find their own courage and say, actually, no, I deserve better. I'm not going to be in an abusive relationship. I don't care what my parents think anymore. I don't care what society thinks. I'm done. And, it took them to rebel to finally move forward. And I think it's the same situation within the LGBTQ community when it comes to sounds. Some of us need to rebel in the sense, and need to just find that inner courage and say, actually, if you're not going to accept me, I'm still going to try and live my life the best way I can. Because at least if you're doing that, then you're not fooling anybody else, and you're not ruining anybody else's life as well by getting into a marriage of convenience, for example.
That's right. Yeah.
Even that, to take that step, it takes a lot of courage, and it does take a lot of support as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And even like you said, gay people, they still want children. It's not to say they wouldn't want children. And I know Kathy and Nav, who have, like I said, been on the show, they want children. Would you want children?
I think that's probably, I do like kids, don't get me wrong. But I think it'll be a joint decision. I'm happy just finding the one and settling down. And to me, anything else would be a cherry on the cake. It'll be an extra blessing. I think for LGBTQ South Asians, finding that one, settling down, I think if we all had that, we'll be fulfilled. Do you know what I mean? It'll just be, anything else is just the benefit. So I think it's such a struggle just to get to that first step for most of us. Thinking about kids and all that is just, it's so far down the line yet.
I'm sure. Now, to tell me a little bit about, in terms of your career, you work in the arts industry. and we've spoken a little bit about some of the challenges. Are things actually changing?
Do you know what? When I first made my Bollywood transition, it was in 2017. So then I did a film called Jirwa 2, which was with David Dhawan and Varun Dhawan. And since then, there have been a few Punjabi films that have come my way, and they've wanted me to play a character who's basically the butt of the joke. Like, he is being ridiculed by the hero of the movie, and he's been ridiculed for his sexuality. And I have flattened out, just turned those roles down and told them to bugger off and don't contact me on my agent again. But then on the other hand, there are other roles that I've done, which is a film that's coming out. It's called Layla Manju. And for the first time in that film, I've played a drag queen, which I've not done before. Yeah.
Good for you. Okay.
And in this film, the character of Rupa, who's what I play, she's really strong. And the heroes look to her for guidance and support, because ultimately she has to take them under her wing and protect them from some bad situations. So it's a very strong, supportive character to play. And it was quite refreshing to play a character who is central to the plot and isn't just the butt of the joke. And then with things like Made in Heaven also, being nominated for so many awards, and hopefully season 2 is coming out very soon. It's such a good show. And they're showing, the kind of effects of Section 377 on Indian society and the way LGBTQ people were treated because of archaic rule. I think it's opened up a lot of mindsets, and it's definitely opened up the dialogue a lot more as well. And in terms of OTT platforms like Netflix and Amazon Prime, it's definitely made people more courageous to write LGBTQ narratives and tell LGBTQ stories from a decent perspective and not just from a joke perspective. So I think things are definitely moving forward, but still a lot more needs to be done. And I think now that Section 377 in India has been banned, I think more and more of these relevant stories are going to start coming, and hopefully I'll be getting more work, which will be great.
No, absolutely. Well, I'm definitely going to be messaging you and introducing you to some people that I know in India as well. In fact, we've had some, like I said, Bollywood stars. We've had Hamsika, who sang the Jai Ho Bollywood song. We've had her on the show here before as well. We've had Tanvi Shah, the one who sang... she sang many songs. She sang with some of the very big famous singers, and I'm just trying to think which song was her debut. But I'll definitely be introducing you to some of them and to their agents as well, because I think you would be wonderful. You would be absolutely wonderful. Yes. But finally, look, I did say to you, didn't I, that time goes really fast when you're on this show, because it's and it's already, it's kind of coming up to 4:00. What would your final message be, Robbie, to those people that are tuned in, that are facing that challenge of whether they should tell their families or not? What should they actually do? How can they build that courage to speak to their parents?
Well, I can only speak from my point of view, and I think ultimately you need to ask yourself, do I want to tell my family? Coming out isn't something which everyone has to do. There's no rule about coming out. Some people don't want to tell other people, and that's fine. That's your choice.
And absolutely, no one else's business, really, is it?
Exactly. And some people want the whole world to know because they're proud of who they are, and that's also their choice. Ultimately, just remember, it's your choice. And if you can't talk to family members, do some research, because there are so many charities out there. For example, the one that comes to my head is the NAS Project. They are there to listen to South Asian LGBTQ issues. They will provide anonymous service. If you just want like a soundboard, just someone to speak to so you can just vent, sometimes that also helps extremely. So there are charities out there who do this sort of work. I know Club Kali also runs some sort of mental health awareness scheme as well, that you can bring them and talk to them about things. So look out for support outside your family, because sometimes you'll be surprised to find that sometimes the best support comes from anonymous sources rather than your own family members. So find someone who you can speak to first, and ultimately remember, it's your choice whether you want to come out or whether you don't.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't agree with you any much more on that. Let's just quickly finish off with the messages. We have Jaswinder saying connections happen when it's the right time. The universe will deliver. Absolutely. Jaswinder saying, I would love to interview on our platform. Your Saheli, we meet up monthly with over 50 ladies joining in, and I'm sure many are waiting to hear your story. How wonderful. So yes, I'm sure you'll able to connect with, just drop me a message, Jaswinder, and I'll put you in touch with the wonderful Robbie. In fact, what I did say to Robbie was, because when he sent me his picture for the creative, I'm gonna let you into a secret here. When I received his picture, I was like, oh, he's so cute. And I did say to him, and I think I embarrassed him as well. And I said, if you were not gay, I would kidnap you. But I think I can still kidnap you. I can kidnap you all for myself. But you know, I'm married and you're gay, so it doesn't quite fit, but doesn't stop me from kidnapping you. So do watch out. And Jacinta is just saying how sad that people are living under such pressure. You're absolutely right there. And you know, like Robbie said, there is help out there. You know, if you do need somebody to talk to, you know, there's Club Kali that Robbie just mentioned. There's the NAS group, and also there's Bulma as well.
Yes.
You know, and so thank you very much to Bulma, who actually introduced me to yourself as well. So, no, thank you, Robin, for joining me here on the show. And I did say that, you know, before we finish, we'd like to hear your lovely voice. So I think it'd be so nice. I think it'd be so nice if you ended on maybe singing just one or two lines, because unfortunately, Gina normally joins in from Mumbai as well. And Gina's someone who's helped identify some Bollywood stars that have been on this show as well, and you know, have actually sung. Like I said, Tanvi Shah's been here, and you know, maybe you know we can link you up with them. So go on, sing me one of your favorites.
Sure. Let me have a little bit of water first. One second.
Yeah, you got some water.
Lubricate those chords.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the song I'm going to sing is Lag Jagale, which is my all-time favorite.
Okay.
So I hope you enjoy it. Okay. लग जा गले कि फिर हंसी रात हो न हो, शायद फिर इस जन्म में मुलाकात हो न हो, लग जा गले से
Wow, how wonderful. Send him lots of love hearts. I want to see lots and lots. So yes, lovely. Wasn't it just absolutely awesome? Absolutely. That was so lovely. God, you're a man of many talents and absolutely gorgeous too. And one of these days when, you know, when I do come up to Slough, I am certainly going to come and kidnap you. But thank you. Thank you so much, Robbie, for joining me here on the Let's Chat to Priti Raichura show. It's been absolutely awesome having you here, and everybody's saying how wonderful, you know, how wonderful you are, and how wonderful you just sung that. So thank you so much for joining me
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm sure, you know, your kind of words of wisdom and your, you know, some of your experiences will help those from the LGBT community. But once again, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Take care. Thanks. Well, thank you, everyone, so much for joining me on this Sunday afternoon. I will be back again next Sunday between 3 and 4. But from me, Priti Raichura, and the lovely Robbie, good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.